We spoke in part 1 of this Dvar Torah about Yachol MeRosh Hodesh, the question in the Haggadah. Maybe we could have already begun to celebrate the holiday of Pesach, discuss the story, teach our children already from Rosh Hodesh. We tried to explain that theologically. Maybe we could celebrate the Geulah, celebrate the redemption, celebrate the closeness to Hashem already from the miyut of the moon, already from the start of Rosh Hodesh when the moon is told to become smaller. That the whole world we live in, with all of its challenges, all of the difficulties, that's like the moon who starts off, was told to make himself smaller, but then is always looking to grow, to become great like the sun again. So the idea was, Yachol MeRosh Hodesh, maybe we could already celebrate the whole concept of Geulah from the fact that the world was created, from the fact that we were supposed to make ourselves smaller, that we have to have a place to exist and have our existence to try to strive for Hashem. So in this Dvar Torah, I want to try to get a little bit deeper into this mashal of the diminishing of the moon. So the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh is to be like the moon, starting in the darkness, but looking to the sun, facing the sun, working towards becoming full again. So I heard a beautiful idea from Rabbi Ephraim Goldstein, who says we have to understand that the waxing and the waning of the moon is a constant process where we try to grow spiritually. And within this process, he says there's a horizontal component and there's a vertical component when it comes to spiritual growth. So he says, like the moon, we try to go towards fullness. We try to look to Hashem, look to the sun, so to speak, to achieve our spiritual goals. And then in baby steps, as we achieve a particular closeness to Hashem, we then start all over. So he says that the moon gets diminished again. When does it get diminished again? When we reach that big goal, we're now going to have to start all over again. And then we're going to start again to grow. And we're going to get ourselves back to that dark spot to then rework, to try to get to the next level, which is going to be even higher and greater level of Kedusha. So he says there's a horizontal and there's a vertical way to see the world. Someone told me that there's a Rav Dessler that speaks about the spiral of Jewish history that might go in a similar direction to this. But he says horizontally, there's waxing and waning. There's bigger and there's smaller. But vertically, we're growing through each of these cycles. So while it might start off the same, it might look the same to the naked eye. Really, it's not true. We're already working on a much higher level and working to complete even higher growth. So vertically, the cycle taking place is one step higher. So he gives a nice mashal. He says, for those of you that are doing the Daf Yomi right now, learning Gemara, so right now you're Masechet Menachot, and you're going daf by daf, page by page, trying to master the Masechet. And klape, the Masechet of Menachot, corresponding to this specific Gemara that you're learning right now, you're reaching full moon status. Eventually, B'ezrat Hashem, you're going to complete the whole Masechet. But once you complete the Masechet of Menachot, now you're going to start all over in the next Masechet of Chulin. So now you're starting again on Daf Bet. You're starting off at the very beginning. You're starting all over. But you have Masechet Menachot in your back pocket. So that's the growth of the Masechet. Within each Masechet, you have this horizontal. You start small, try to get to that full moon. And even in the same Masechet, you can start all over again. Okay, you can learn Masechet Menachot with the simple art scroll, read it in English. You can learn it with a Rashi. Then afterwards, you can read it again with Tosfot. You can read it again with the Maharsha. You can go to the other Rishonim, the other Achronim. You can get really much deeper in what you're learning. So even within the same Masechet, you can grow, and there's different levels. But on the simple level, you finish one Masechet, you then go on to the next Masechet. So in the new Masechet, it's like starting all over. But in the bigger picture, you're slowly going through all of Shas, and you're going through a Seder. Oh, today I'm going to finish a Seder Zmanim. Tomorrow Seder Mod, and eventually you're going to get through every Seder. You can get through the whole Daf Yomi, all the Gemarot. I'll have gone through Shas. So that ultimately is going to be a vertical growth. So adding to this idea, I saw a beautiful idea in Manitou, where he says, don't think when you start over, you're really starting from scratch, because he says after the moon reached full moon status, Hashem then gives him a present. He gives him stars, kochavim. What are kochavim? They're little suns, or they're maybe little full moons. So if you look at it from this perspective, we worked, and we became a full moon. We mastered a certain level. We reached that level to now mimic the sun. So when we did that, now we're going to start over at the next level. We want to go to the next level of growth. So now we become small again. But in this next level, look around, you have these mini suns. You have these mini stars that correspond to all the previous full moons we've already reached. Okay, that was a nice idea, Manitou. On Pesach night, we sing Shir Hashirim. After we finish the Seder, we go through the Haggadah. The minhag is to read through Shir Hashirim, the Song of Songs, that love story to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in the past, we focused on a particular pasuk that corresponded to Shavuot, to Matan Torah, the pasuk of Yeshakeni Mineshikot Pihu. Hashem, you're our lover. Please kiss us, yeshakeni meneshikot pihu, with the kisses of your mouth, of the pihu. But in the past we spoke about pihu is actually a joining of two words, piv and pia, his and her kiss. It's a special kiss, pe el pe, mouth to mouth, horizontal, the most intimate of the kisses, mouth to mouth, where both sides are giving and receiving at the very same time. The moon has grown to the full level to be like the sun. It's a full moon giving off the full reflection, the full light back at the sun. It's the husband and wife, the full kiss to kiss, mouth to mouth. But we know this level of the kiss to kiss, the horizontal, the full moon, it doesn't last. It can't last. It ultimately got broken. It goes back. The moon after the 15th, it's going to become dark again. The first luchot, and those first luchot, which corresponded to the whole Torah, we didn't need an oral Torah. It was supposed to be the greatest level of Matan Torah. It broke. We became small again. Moshe was told, Lech red, go down from your level. You can't stay at this high level. You can't be on this level of the Sharnun. Chazal tell us, the pasuk says, "Vatechasreu me'at me'elokim," that Moshe Rabbeinu lost a little bit of that glow of Elokim, that connection to Hashem, that full Sharnun, the 50th gate. He went down Lech red. You can't be Lech Lamed Kaf Gematria 50. You have to go down to the 49th level of Binah, the 49th gate of wisdom. You can't stay on this level. We said once in the past from Manitu, was actually our Dvar Torah, back on the Akedah Yitzchak, we said Shvu lachem poi machamor v'ani v'anar nelech harko. When Abraham tells Eliezer, tells Ishmael, you guys stay here. Shvu lachem po. So we said po is gematria 85. Elokim is gematria 86. But techzero me'at me'elokim. Moshe Rabbeinu lost one level, the full level of Elokim, of really grasping HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the level of 86. We in life can't reach that level, and there's no human being. We can only get to the level of 85, to the level of po. But po is also the level of pe. So even this concept of pe el pe, we're like the moon who's mirroring back to the sun, but we're still not the sun. We're still not the 86. But techzero me'at me'elokim. But on the 15th of Nisan, on Pesach night in Mitzrayim, for one moment, the moon got its crown back. On that Pesach night, the moon, the great light came out as if there was a sun. Okay, so that's the moon mashal. We also mentioned the other mashal, the splitting of the waters, the upper waters and the lower waters, the separation of the Mayim Elyonim and the Mayim Tachtonim. Now we know there's another water splitting that takes place on Pesach. On Shvi'i Shel Pesach, we have the splitting of the Yam Suf. Now says the Gemara in Sotah, this is Daf Bet Amud Aleph, Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, speaking about zivugin, speaking about relationships, husbands and wives, people coming together. The kashin lezavegan kekriyat Yam Suf, bringing together a husband and wife, finding the chatan and kala, is just as difficult, v'kashin kikriyat Yam Suf, like the splitting of the sea. So lanuta ati, I was thinking, if you look at these ideas, the splitting of the sea and making the zivug, making the couples, these two ideas on the surface level are polar opposites. Splitting the sea is a split, it's separating. Zivugim is about coming together, it's about uniting. So I think maybe we can learn that what Chazal are teaching us is that at least on the mystical level, is that the separating is just as hard for HaKadosh Baruch Hu as coming together. Meaning originally the whole world was this great light, this Or Ein Sof, this everything, but then ultimately Hashem says, let's make a tzimtzum, let's hold back, let's contract, let's make space for free will, let's make space for sin. And that's very difficult, that's very, very kashe. Well, you know what else is kashe? To make the zivug again, to bring it back together, to bring those lower waters back up to the upper waters, to make the moon whole again and be like the sun. The idea of finding HaKadosh Baruch Hu, seeing the revelation, seeing the bigger picture, and seeing and recognizing God, that itself also. So we have the two kashe, the initial creation, kashe also the end goal of creation. Again, those two sides of the coin. Now, I remember reading once a deep idea that when Hashem split the upper waters and the lower waters, so we have down below the Yam. Up above, you have the Mayim, the May. You have the May, it would be another way to say water. May, May soda, May this. So you have the May. May is also the same otiyot as me, as who. It's the mystery, it's the Shar Nun. It's the 50th gate that we can't fully grasp. So it's the May, it's the me. That's the water up above. And down below, we have the inverse. We have ourselves the Yam, same letters, Yud Mem. It's also the 50. But the Yam right now is where it is down below on our physical world down below. So we have the me, the mystery, the part we don't understand up in heaven, that then becomes the Yam down below. And actually put those two waters together. You have Mayim, you have the May and the Yam. Put it together, you have the Mayim. Okay. But now by Pesach, we're in 7 days from Pesach, at the end of Pesach, we're going to split the sea. We're going to split the Suf. We have the Suf, the Ein Sof, the Yam Suf. Again, a hint to the Ein Sof, to infinite of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's a hint for the tzimtzum. Now again, let's not take anything I'm saying literally. Let's not be heretics over here. But Hashem is holding himself back, so to speak, to create an olam chaser, to create a world that's lacking. So that way, the lower waters are brought down, but they have the ability to cry and to strive to try to come back up, to try to make the zivug. So there's breaking in order to reconnect. That's the purpose of creation. The feminine waters wanting to reunite with the masculine waters, but that's the kashe, it's kashin. The breaking is just as kashe as the coming back together, meaning this whole world we live in from the very beginning to the very end, it's kashe. It's going to be difficult. There's a lot of hardships to get back to that level of revelation. But our job now, we're mankind, we're down below. It's now our desire to try to reconnect with those heavens. We have to be like those feminine waters. We have to be like the moon. Our job is to look to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have to try to return to the great light. Now, as we said, Rabbi Akiva is this big character throughout the Haggadah because he already lives in the Geulah. Pesach is the mini Geulah. Rabbi Akiva, even in our darkness, he sees the Geulah, and that's why people want to hang out at his house. And many people have learned that section in the Haggadah might have taken place after the temple was destroyed. They're going to him for chizuk. So he says, when you make it up to the Pardes, when you make it up to the Sharnun, don't say Mayim. There's no separation up above. There's no oral and written Torahs up above. There's only Achdut, the first Luchot. Rabbi Akiva lives on this much higher level. He's a higher level where he sees it both in the world and how he sees it, the events of world history, but he also sees it when it comes to Torah. There's an Achdut that Rabbi Akiva has. He's crowning those crowns on the letters of the Torah. He's attaching that oral Torah to the written Torah the way it always was. So I was listening to a shiur from Rabbi Yosef Greenwald. He's actually on Shavuot, where he says we start this great light on Pesach, but then 50 days, and then Shvi'i Shel Pesach, the splitting of the sea, another great event. But then 50 days later on Shavuot, that's when the real light comes out. He says that's when the moon really gets its keter back for a day. On Shavuot night, the crown comes back to the moon, and he says that's why there's no korban chatat on Shavuot. On Shavuot, the korban chatat is not there, he says. Why? Because right now we have a tikkun for the moon for that one day. And that's why on Shavuot, there's no night and there's no day. We learn Torah throughout the night as if it's daytime. We live in a different kind of reality. The Gemara in Megillah tells us, La Yehudi Maita Ora, Ora Zot Torah. The Torah is the light. Hence on Shavuot night, there's no more night. We just have light. Because when we connect to that Torah, we have ourselves the light. And again, this explains why everyone's in Rabbi Akiva's house. They all want to learn by him on Pesach night. In the middle of the night, in the darkness, we want to go to Rabbi Akiva because Rabbi Akiva, he's the pillar of Torah. He's the pillar of the light. He's the pillar of the oral Torah that's compared to the Levanah, to the moon. But he's able to reach those great heights. He's able to reach the level of the Sharnun, where there is no separation anymore. There is no water. He reaches the point where the moon is complete. It's full, and it has that light. He could laugh, and he can say that Tova Metiv. He could say, he sees that even the bad times, it's for the sake of the good. He understands that higher level of messianic times. And this also might be hinted to in his machloket, that the Gemara's machloket between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Until when can you eat the Korban Pesach? Can it only be eaten until Chatzot, until the middle of the night, or can it go all the way until Amud HaShachar? Can it go all the way until dawn? As the night gets longer and it gets later, it gets darker and darker and darker. Rabbi Akiva is saying, the Korban Pesach, we can even eat it at the very end of the night when it's so dark and it's super, super dark. It's okay. We can eat the Korban. We can see the Geula there too in the darkest of times, because we know at that darkest moment, a second later, that's when you have the first dawn of light. Rabbi Akiva understands that and lives that. Therefore, in the darkest moment where the fox are hanging out by the temple's destruction, the ruins of the Beit HaMikdash, there Rabbi Akiva is laughing because he says, if that prophecy came true, the prophecy of it being rebuilt is going to come true as well. But ultimately, halacha is not like Rabbi Akiva. We eat the Korban Pesach. These are the times of Beit HaMikdash. We have to eat it much, much, much earlier. We have to eat it by Chatzot, by the middle of the night. And that was in the real light of, that full moon in the middle of the night. I guess that's how we say it dramatically. I'm not sure if there's a Chazal that says it or not, but it's like the Chatzot light of the full moon. We can do it in our world today. We only can celebrate Pesach when we have a little bit of that Geula already revealed to us. I want to close with one last idea from the Pesach Seder itself that also might be a mashal to this idea that we're speaking about right now. And I want to borrow a little bit from what we spoke about last year. Last year we sent out a Devar Torah discussing the mitzvah or the custom, the halacha that we do on Pesach night to do yachatz, that we split the matzah in half. So we have the splitting of the sea, we have ourselves the splitting of the middle matzah. And we spoke last year in the name of the Arizal. We spoke that it's a kavanah that the Gon Mevilna had. It's actually what most Sfaradim do today, actually, where we take the middle matzah And we see the middle matzah as the letter Hey. In the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Yud K and the Vav K. So that first K, the first Hey in the Yud K Vav K, that corresponds to the matzah. We said halach ma'anya. Halach ma'anya can be read hey lach ma'anya, the letter hey. This lechem oni, this poor man's bread, really it's the letter hey. We're supposed to look at the matzah and think of the letter hey, the second hey, the first hey in the Yud Kei Vav Kei. And the hey, halach ma'anya, is lechem oni. It's the matzah. Because what's the difference between the matzah and chametz? Matzah and chametz, they both share the letter mem, they both share the letter tzadik. The only difference is the hey versus the chet. That little chupshi, that little corner where the hey does not attach to the ceiling. The attachment makes it into a chet. So what makes matzah different than chametz? It's the letter hey. The hey is what represents the matzah. But in Yachatz, he says this letter hey, the second letter of Hashem's name, gets broken up. It gets broken up into its core parts. We mentioned in the previous recording that how do you write the letter hey? So there's two ways to write the letter hey: Daled Vav or Daled Yud. Now in this part of the Dvar Torah, we're going to Daled Vav. You can ayin in the other Dvar Torah what happened to the Daled Yud, Halach Ma'anya D, Daled Yud. Okay, side ideas. But now this hey is seen as being made up of the letters Daled and Vav. And we spoke last year that when you break up the matzah, the Sfaradim try to break it up into the shape of a Daled and a Vav. A little bit hard to break it, especially with the thin matzahs. It turns into 3 parts sometimes, but you really want to try to make a Daled and a Vav. That's the custom of most Sfaradim, at least according to Rav Avadia. The Gaon Mevilna says that the Ashkenazim break it in half, but they have a vision of the holy letters up in the Shemaim, and they vision the 2 pieces to be like a Daled and a Vav. And what does the Daled symbolize? Why do we break the matzah? We're turning it into poor man's bread, where we're celebrating the slavery, or we're reenacting the terrible slavery right now. The slavery is symbolized by the letter Daled. Daled is also a language of dalut, of dalim, of being poor. That the hay became dalit. The hay lost its vav. It became poor. And now we tell over our story of the Magid on the Dalit section of the matzah. We leave the vav for the tzafun. We leave the vav for the atid lavo. So I was wondering, maybe we can take this whole concept of the Arizal, of taking the matzah, seeing the Dalet and the Vav, breaking it. Maybe we can see that also as a mashal to the creation of the world. The Leshem says in Shar Zayin, he teaches that the creation of the world was created through the letters of Hashem's name, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. And he speaks over there long, deep ideas of how Hashem creates all the way from the very beginning, all the way down till eventually we have our physical world down below. And there's myriads and myriads of worlds along the way, some more primary ones, but really until the creation of the world. But it's all done through Hashem's name, the Shem Havaya, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Through the Yud Kei Vav Kei, we're going to have ourselves some type of a mashal of creating the world. So he says we start with the letter Yud. Actually, we start with the Kotzol Shel Yud, the little chupchik on top of the Yud, the little crown over there, but that's for a different time. But let's start with the letter Yud. The Yud is the first letter. And what is the Yud? It's a simple mark. It's the first quill. He says the start of creation. A tiny little line. Yud is Gematria 10. It contains the 10 sfirot, the 10 building blocks for the entire world. The letter Yud is spelled Yud Vav Daled. So we have the word Yud Vav Daled. Now, the hidden letters, the milui, the hidden letters of the letter Yud, the Vav and the Daled, that describes the expression that's inside the letter Yud that needs to be revealed. So the revealed part of the Yud is the letter Yud. Its hidden letters are the Vav and the Daled. Vav and the Daled. The Vav and the Daled need to be revealed. That's the milui. So what happens? The Yud then reveals its inner part. What's the inner part? The Vav and the Daled. The Vav and the Daled come out. Now, Vav and Daled, Vav is Gematria 6, Daled is Gematria 4. So again, we're getting to the 10. So in the Yud, its inner core also has this power of the building blocks of 10. But the Vav and Daled come together and they form the letter Hey. So now we have ourselves the Yud and the K. The Yud and the Hey. We have now the first 2 letters of Hashem's name, and that's the next step in the creation of the world. And then now that Hey gets broken up even more. And when that Hey gets broken up, the Vav comes out. And that's ultimately going to be the Yud K and then the Vav. The Yud K Vav K, the Vav now is the broken part that's coming out from that Hey. And the Vav is always seen as a bigger expression of the world we live in right now. I mean, the Yud and the K are considered to be part of the upper world, part of the more holiness. We always want to do a L'Shem Yechud. We want to bring together the Yud K and the Vav K. The Yud K is always seen as the more heavenly, as the more godly, and the Vav K seem to be more down below. We always want to bring those two together. So again, maybe in Yachatz itself, it's another hint to Hashem's tzimtzum. It's another hint to Hashem creating the world. And now we're breaking up again. The hay now is now being broken up into its more core parts. We're now separating the Dalet part from the Vav part. I actually saw some other Sfarim speak about the Dalet being would actually correspond to the Malchut, would correspond to the final hay. Okay, side ideas beyond the scope over here. But interestingly, that right after Halach Ma'anya, we have Manishtana. And I was listening to a rabbi this year in Israel. He was saying that Manishtana, why does it start with the word memhe? What is memhe? So memhe is also a hint to a name of God. This is Rabbi El Nekaveh. He says that memhe, ma, is also a name of God. It's a gematria of a name of God. It's the name of God that corresponds to the letter Vav. Again, beyond the scope of this Dvar Torah. But he says this concept of the ma, that really is the world we're down here below, where we're living in. And then I saw in Manitu now takes that idea of the ma and relates it back to the original creation of mayim, of water. He says, well, what is mayim? So mayim, the plural, the upper world and the lower world, we said the may and the yam, putting it together, what is the mayim? So he quotes in the name of a Rishon, a mystical teaching from Rav Chia HaNasi. And it says Rav Chia HaNasi, this is in his sefer that's called Higayon HaNefesh. So he says a really deep idea. He says, what is mayim? Mayim is the plural of many mas. If we take a bunch of mas and put them together, take a bunch of whats. We're talking about creation of the world now. So we now have a something. We have a what. You take a bunch of mas and put them together. Many mas are mayim. You put a bunch of mas together, we get ourselves mayim. But then Manitu goes even further, and he says that if we take the yud up in the very beginning of creation, we then extend it down to have our creation, the yud becomes a vav. And the whole idea of the vav being an extension of the yud, now the mayim, the yud part, now became a vav, which became a mum. Now mum, he says, is the same gematria as 86, as Elokim, as Hateva, as nature. The world we live in has mumim. It has itself blemishes. It's not perfect. We live in a world where there is problems, where there's darkness. It's a world where we have free will, but part of free will means there's also Yetzer Hara, there's also Ra in the world. So he says the goal is to fix that Vav and get it back to the letter Yud, which again is I think this bigger picture we're talking about, that we're trying to get back from the Yud K Vav K to the Yud K Yud K. We're trying to get back up to holiness. The bottom, the lower waters want to get back up to the upper waters. So the splitting of the world, the creation of the world, is just as kashe as coming back together. But that's Yachol MeRosh Hodesh. What we're saying in our Haggadah is Yachol MeRosh Chodesh. Maybe I could, once I understand this bigger picture, maybe I could already say, let's sing the praises of Pesach already on Rosh Chodesh, already celebrate the splitting, celebrate the brokenness that gives us the opportunity to reconnect, because that's the whole purpose of the Ratzon Hashem, why Hashem created the world. But the Haggadah says no. We got to wait till Pesach night. We got to wait till the full moon. We got to wait till we actually have some Geula. We actually have some light. When things have moved in the right connection, so we can feel the closeness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then we can really thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu and celebrate Pesach. Chag Sameach.